Welcome back to the tutorial 8 installment. This is where we stand for the tutorial. As you can see, our shop is working fine. Can make a purchase. It knows how much is in our inventory. Cart, and lets you purchase something here. Transaction log. We can be specific on the purchase, which is the one we just did. Our inventory and our ordering is available. Our ordering when we're needing something, and we can go ahead and order it from here. It shows up. There you are. Then we can see that our order has been working through. Now we can analyze our sales as well. And it depends on how long you want to go back. You can go back and analyze the whole year. Here's your order history and reviews. And here it is in our mobile. And walk through the whole purchase here in mobile. And of course, we're just basically doing the same thing we just did in mobile. And then we'll get to the lesson. I'm noticing no one ever watches past like the first 30 seconds, so I'm trying to do as much of the what's in the actual class as possible to get people interested. Okay, so let's moving on to doing a get with axios. We're going to go ahead and pass the name. And this will be just above the user effect. The use effect. We'll pass the name over to orders by item. And then we'll take out the get from the use effect. And we put it in the orders by item so we can utilize it everywhere. We can call it, and it doesn't have to be just in the use effect. There we go. I'm just going to go ahead and do a little passing that name correctly. And we'll just save to the session storage what we're using, what item's active. There we go. So basically, if we remember that something was saved last time, then we'll keep that one item active. And let's go take a look at the order log and map through the orders. It's something we can easily do because we're already grabbing the orders, so we're just gonna show them in a log form as well. And then based on whether they say ordered or received, it will depend on what they look like. If they've been ordered and they haven't been received, we're gonna have to have a button, and which we will eventually move to the bottom with the log. And you'll see what I'm saying. With the purchase log, it'll be a button or not. And we'll just map through the items. And here we can determine what we're going to do, what we're going to show. All right, getting closer. So we're going to be showing how many were ordered. There we are. And the name of it. And it's a really long name. So let's just refine this and see what we want to do. A little spacing. Okay. So what I'm going to be doing is putting a unordered list with no bullets with the list unstyled class. And we're just going to be doing some line items here because there's a few things I just need to show the user with their order console, with the logging. So here's our differences. Obviously, the ternary operator is going to be based on whether it's ordered or received. And it's saying that here. It's saying if it has the word received in it, because this is something that's generated by the app, then we know what we want to do in one regard. And in the other, of course, we'll let it know it hasn't arrived yet. Okay, so right now we just have this red text that says, okay, it's not here. So it's not much, but we know that the ternary operator, it's not a problem. We can do whatever we want if we want to put something different here. Let's get a little padding and a little spacing. And like it's get these a little closer together. And we'll just fashion this for a little while and kind of make our choices be made to where it looks nice. Yeah, this is just a lot of refactoring. Like, you get the idea. It's going to take me a little while to get to my endpoint. This is me basically filming my refactoring concepts until I think it looks the way I want it to look. As it gets closer and closer, this is just my process. Yeah, as you can see, it's a lot of starting and stopping things. And then I get the grand idea of moving the button, the order button down. And then I also decide I'm going to start showing how many days have passed since the order. If it was received, it'll have a total. And it's pretty easy. For the most part, what I'm going to do to find out how many days have been passed is this is a function that basically gets the time basically put back out into the milliseconds. And then I subtract 1 day minus the other. The way you do that is you take, they're all in like these, this would be a huge number at this point, but you subtract the number and then you recompile it back into a day. So like I'm going to break it down into like how much time it was, how many milliseconds passed for one minus the other, and then take that and say, well, how many days is this? And then that's it. So that's kind of the process of finding out how many days have passed, as you find out how many seconds have passed, and then ultimately how many days are in that amount of seconds, and that's it. It's a lot of big numbers that the computer basically does the work for. So as long as you get that concept, it does the days for you. with this formula. And then from there, I can say that, you ordered this, and then it was received, and it took this many days, and so on and so forth. Or if it hasn't been received, we say, well, you ordered it this many days ago. And so I just have to plug in those numbers. And granted, I have to start off in a sense of like using substrings to get these timestamps apart so I can make my formula. But the timestamps are, it's legit. It's one of those things where we recorded the timestamps for a reason, and this is how you use them. So I have to refine this. It's a little, confusing because the substrings they're really long. But as you can see, I eventually get it as it's breaking down, and then I also do it for the receiving end. And so we'll just walk through this here. All right, so far, the dates aren't coming in just right. So I just got to do a little more tweaking. Okay, we're getting closer. little bit off, obviously. Hold on. We'll get a little bit more information. Okay, so I also want to show that I did a sharing of the lists of months. So I make a placeholder, and I'll walk through this later on with the other ones, that gets basically pushed out to 0 once I realize I have a month. And then I apply the correct total to every purchase and every order within that month. And then the two items share for the calendar, for the chart. And you'll see us kind of walk through that, and I get to walk through it multiple times here. And I just kind of wanted to show you the difference, if you wanted to pause at what we had last time, and then, you know, what's new. So right here we're saying that you need to select something in order to order something. Otherwise it'll just say, you know, nothing. It'll just say this down here. So here you can see that it says 3 days, 5 days past, 6 days. It's in the negatives because it means it's past. That's what the math gave us. So that's kind of how that works. It'll have a negative number in there. I just got to get the math out there and get it correct. Okay, so now we're going to put a current time and date so that we can share that throughout the module. And we'll do that by using the timestamp function. That way we have it timestamped and it'll always be the same stamp. But the problem is that, you know, if I didn't do this in the same spot, if I did this in other places, timestamp has to be used once. And once only when you're doing something like this. Because if I use it multiple times, it took milliseconds to get writing to that other spot, and the timestamp will be different by the millisecond. So I'm basically just going to get one stamp, and we'll use that variable the whole time, the same number. Well, let's refresh and see where we are now. Okay, so right now it's getting closer. I can see that it says not a number, so I'm going to figure out what's wrong. Oh, yeah, from this part, the analytics was kind of, it didn't make much sense because the way we did the math now, it doesn't, you won't be subtracting things. It has the total number. So I just switched it to say that this is what you sold this month and this is our current stock. So then I decided I wanted to put a filter on the sales log just because it's just kind of hard to read. There's so much information on it. So I just went for one of the filters we're already using and just kind of brought it in because they're so simple. Basically, you type up something, and if the item name matches that typed up, whatever you've typed up in any way, if those strings are listed in there, if there's a match, then we show those items, and if there's not a match, we hide the other items on the list. So I'm applying that here, which is something you see me do all the time. I just thought that this list got too long and it needed a filter or some way to filter it. And here you are with the ternary operator. Just asking to see if item search is there, and if not, then we'll hide it. Now, it takes a little bit of altering of the original function to get it to work here. As you can see, it's not a big deal, but we're also dealing with a... the filter can be called out basically from a couple different things, from a select menu or an input. So I'm basically resetting if you use one or the other. Based on the word default, like if you use the select, the first option is value is default. So that's how I know. There we go. As you can see, it's installed. I do need to bring it back in and to make sure that the select menu for the users is fixed up. So this takes me a minute to fix. There we go. When we reset it back to 0, if somebody starts typing in a search, it'll get it back to 0 on the select menu. Okay, so now we're back over here on the order list. And as you can see, the order received is way up here, and this is where it starts to bother me. Is it's kind of like you've got your order log at the bottom, and it just doesn't seem right with that button up on top. So this is where I get my grand idea to swap them, or not swap them, but merge them. I'll take that button from the top and say, well, if it says that it was ordered and not received, let's just bring that down into one spot. And that's kind of the end idea. There we go. So it's getting closer. Starting to get the idea. All right, so after purchase success, we are also going to have to update the stock quantity. And here we go. We'll call it something different so we know that's just -1 each time. And we're basically just going to have to tell it the name, because the -1 part's easy. We can just, every time we ping it, we just -1 on the server side. So we'll write that into the SQL string, the command line for the SQL. And here we are on the server side and doing just that. So when something's bought, I need to basically go and update the stock quantity to -1. And here I've brought this down with a copy and paste, as easy as that. I brought it down, so we have the order received button down here now with the same function of update status. But I just brought it down so that it'll be merged with the logging. There it goes. See, there's where the button looks. It's not really pretty just yet. I'll keep working on it. There, this is kind of more of what their in-game is supposed to look like. So it gives you all the information as well that we did up at the top. Now we don't have to do all that padding that we did. And this one has them all has been received, so there, so we can see the bottom of it now. Yeah, it looks much more like we want. And then that still works, the function still works like it used to. All right, we can also do this calculating it live. And we want to take out the default one here so we can get one that's more accurate. And here is, depending on our, it's going to be red if it's going to be lower than 5. So if we have a quantity lower than 5, we need to make that order. That's why it turns red here with the ternary operator. And here we can get the total sort per month. We're just going to basically let everybody know that that's what they're looking at here with the selected month, because that's all they're asking for with the date selector. Now, as you can see, that's the case. So let's move on to the purchase history and reviews. Make a new button here in the nav. So we'll let the active module change and say that we're doing the purchase history. And we'll go ahead and start writing the module. And this is all kind of data that we already have coming in, so it's going to be pretty easy for us to acquire because we already have an understanding of how this data shows. And there's no, it's just a read-only area. Like there's no real CRUD system on this module, so it's going to be really simple to just get the data of like what you ordered and what the reviews were that you had. So I'll just start off with some basic, JSX here to have the placeholder. And take a look at our schema and, a little bit about what our keys and values are going to look like so that we get an idea of what we're going to expect. And we'll make sure that our purchase history is brought up in here into the app itself and app.js, and we'll give it all the things it needs once the active module is selecting it. Okay, so let's go ahead and add user purchases to the purchase history because that's something we already have. And that's kind of half the battle. Otherwise, with the other the reviews, we're going to have to make a specific call. So as you can notice, I did import axios. And then once we've downloaded all the user purchases and have it make a list, then I apply the reviews, if any, to the data that we already have. So basically what I'm doing is to map through all of the purchases. And a lot of times the person has bought the same product multiple times, but there's only one review for that product. So therefore, we're just going to have it print out all the review information, and then we go through and check and see if this has got a review, and if it has, regardless if we've already put it, it's listed again, so we must put the review again. So if I bought 4 pairs of sunglasses and made one review, that review is going to show up 4 times, if that's clear. Now, it's debatable whether I did the best way to do this. As you can see, what I'm doing is I'm going to be loading this up first. Now, once it's loaded up and printed out, then I'm applying the, like I said, I'm going to be applying the reviews. You could also build an object. And so you'd go through a loop and get all the reviews into an object and have keys and values appropriate for that. But then you also leave keys with empty values in the object. And then you run it again. You run another for loop through all your reviews and populate the object and fill those empty values. And then you run the entire object once they've merged. So it's up to you. I think the latter is probably better, and there's a good chance I might even go back and just do that. Just because, let's say we're printing something out, and we didn't get in time enough to print it all out, and then we called for the reviews. Okay, well, that might be a problem. What happens with the review? Would love to go there, but it hasn't printed out yet. Then it has nowhere to print, and it won't happen. So the chances of that are pretty much 0, but that's what I'm worried about. Is the latency. So we'll see. We'll see how much I get response from this video to see if anybody cares. And so I'm also doing a filter items, which is identical to the one we just did, where I'm basically looking to see, I'll type something in, and if those characters match anything that within the item names that I've bought, it'll show those and hide everything else. So basically exact same ternary operator that has the either list unstyled or hide for the unordered list. So there you can go. You can see that our filter's working. Looks like I've purchased many of the same item, but that's just been through testing, obviously. Okay, so let's get this all squared away with the grid system. I feel we can wrap these in a, I don't know if you guys are familiar, I've used them before, where they're called a card. And this is Bootstrap's way of kind of making a list of things look a little more professional. There's a lot of padding and spacing involved with the card, with an outline and maybe even sometimes some shadow, just a little hint of it. But it looks much more professional. It's like a small panel is what they call a card. And it has a title and it has a card body, and you could put in a footer or an image if you want. The Bootstrap examples has a lot of these kind of already laid out, and I'm just fashioning it after something I've already seen there. As you can see, I'm getting it together, and it does have our data working, but there's some padding that needs to be done, so let's get this all named correctly. And then that padding might start to appear. And then you can see the Bootstrap. Here we go. We're starting to get some more ideas of what this is going to look like. Now let's add some padding at the bottom so that we can see the last entry. It looks like everything's coming in correctly. And so, like I said, this is a real basic part. I haven't used Axios yet, but I need to now for our next move. I need to grab a get for our reviews. And so first off, I'm just going to make another copy of the get that's on our server side within the router for reviews. And I'm just going to copy paste. Instead of server side get reviews for a specific item, I'm going specific user. And now I'll just say I want an email. And so give me everything regarding this email is going to be a little more what we're going to need for this. But since we kind of already have these client and server side for this, so let's just grab it and we'll get these working. It looks like my email is not 100% just yet, so let's pass that correctly. I think that we could probably pass it a better way through passing it through the component. There we go. It's all happening so fast that you have to kind of pass the email around once this gets here. There's a few ways to do it. Sometimes they're better than others. I think it'd probably be better to just put it through the props. So let's get the reviews for the API. And like I said, we're just doing a copy because we just need to do a get. So it's always going to be the same. So let's start off with our traditional, is this loaded or not, so we can use the useEffect. And if it's been loaded, then we will basically set it to true. Otherwise, it'll be false. But that'll give us the one opportunity. Once we get the opportunity to run this one time, the get, let's take out everything we don't need. And like I said, we are going to be looking for the user. So let's go ahead and get that path correct. Otherwise, it'll think it's going somewhere else. And so here, I want to make sure that these have already been, the card and the bodies have been basically written out. And this just says, hey, do these already been written thus far? Because once they do get written, I want to apply some more data into them using another for loop. So basically, and I'm not sure if I can't remember if I stuck with this or not. Here I am giving I'm printing out something and then applying to see if it's been printed out. And if it is, then I move to the next step, which is applying the reviews to the elements that I have written for. And I need to identify them. So I'm doing like a data set for some of the details. And I want to make this kind of like weighted out, because I'm hoping that not only is it already written, but I want to make sure all of it's written. So I just want it to have like a 1,000 milliseconds, which is like a second for latency, before it performs this loop. It will go through all the reviews, looking at all the titles for the reviews, and seeing, is there an element here with this data name attribute? And if there is, let's go ahead and add to it the review for this item name. So here I'm looking to see if this has the opportunity to rate it. If they have a review and there's been a rating, and then here's our opportunity. And that's what this data set is for. So I said, hey, does this element exist in regards to a purchase and a review of this item? It's called comment, not review. There we go. And this will actually not work, as you can see here. It's only asking for one so far, so we're going to end up doing a for each, because it's going to have multiple if they bought the same thing multiple times. So this is just going through, and it would only apply to the first one. And so we got a little bit of mistakes that we're going to have to go through and fix. Nothing serious. And so when it comes to the app.js, I feel like we can pass over config, user email, and show alert to this module, just like the others. That'll save us a headache. So as you can see, we can do proper axios like calls, things like that. So as you can see now, I've got your rating and review are empty. So we've got these printouts of all of the things we bought, but anything that we've rented or we've reviewed is not there yet. So let's go ahead and find out how long it takes me to figure out that I need to do a for each. And also a data length would help. Otherwise, you don't loop anything. And as you can see, there's just the first ones are filled out, and then the other ones are not, because it only asks for the first ones. It only asks for one element. We need to do a query select all and do a for each. So let's get these set up correctly. So here we go. This is something that gets done all the time. Query selector all. So it goes select each one of them individually. And then we perform a function. And this function carries with it this E, which is going to stand for the element, which is this specific element with the data rating and the item name. And it goes through and calls each one of them. And it's one of those, like, if there isn't one, then it just won't do this. So you're helping yourself from making mistakes. Like, if there's not one, nothing will happen. So we've already asked if there was one in the beginning, and if not, this all gets ignored. So it works itself out great. And as you can see, here are my reviews, but they're in the URI encoded. As you can see, with those 20% switches, a space in URI encodement. So I'm going to basically just have to decode that as it comes out. No sweat. URI, decode URI. And I can't remember if I actually keep this. This was just a confirmation that I did load my ratings, but we'll see if I actually keep it around. Sometimes I'll get some grand idea and then kind of squash it out in my head, and I don't use it. If I remember, this might be one of those, but we'll see. Oh yeah, so this wouldn't even work anyway, because if I did this, then there is no element to apply the rating to. So that's a hard no here. So as you can see, the decoding of the URI worked fine. And these are the defaults in case there is not a review for this purchase. And now I'm starting to get the hang of it. And as you can see, I'm now going to put the you gave the rating of and then kind of build it out here instead. And this is applying it to an element that's already in existence. So it's a little bit different. It's already loaded, and I'm coming in and having JavaScript write it once it's written. There you go. And you can see there's a little bit of latency because I asked it to wait a second because I want to make sure everything's loaded first. And then it just says 3 out of 5. This is your rating, or so on and so forth. But we both know that we have a stars rating system that is super easy, and it's all done by CSS. And all it takes is a simple array from 1 through 5. And that is something we can count and compare to tell you which class we'd like to show. So let's go ahead and get that out here. And this will just show you the vote that this individual had done. You don't need the half stars because it's just this individual can't do half stars. Those are only coming up when you're doing averages. So this is much easier. We just do a ternary operator to make sure that if it is above the index of the stars array, and if not, then they don't get a star, and if it is, then they get a star colored in with the yellow background, yellow star class. We've seen it probably. We've done this maybe about 5 times in this application. So the star thing is a well-known thing. And as you can see here, I'm building out a string using a loop that will write the stars out in a string, and then I just apply that string wherever I need to. That being the case, though, class name is not going to work out well. Class name works well when you're writing JSX. This string is going to be HTML. So as you can see, I cannot use the class name in the string. It won't work. So I'm going to do a little bit of adjusting here and get this string built out with this for loop. But then obviously I'll have a little bit of fixing to do as I swing through. Now the idea is, as it comes through each rating system, we've already got a loop going through to ask if they have the rating at all. So I can't use I, but I can use J or anything else in the alphabet. So I'm going to build an empty string out with this loop with J, and I'll build it asking if this rating system is above or below the index of the rating star array. And as you can see, the temp stars variable, that's where it's going to show up to. And if it has a yellow star, it means that it is actually above that rating. Or equal to it. And we don't need to have the key index. So as we can see, let's take a look at the inspector, and we'll see the items. And we're technically going to see them, but obviously, like I said, the class name will not be correct. Right. So class name, that's the problem. And I'll catch on to it in a second. When I'm looking through this stuff, I'll see that that's just that. And I'm not actually closing out the quotes correctly either. So just a couple adjustments here. Let's get that class to say class instead of class name, and then let's close out. Still not able to see it because of the quotes. So we'll swing over one more time and build these quotes out correctly. And take me a second. There we go. Just a single quote to close them. Rewind, refresh, and here we are. Now we have our reviews, and those reviews show up as many times as we wanted. And here's how to show a print. I already have the CSS built in. These are things that you do or don't want to print based on that CSS rules right there. I'm going to basically build out a new button that has this printer icon. That's a font awesome icon. And we're just going to have a JavaScript in here because there is no page for print. And so this is going to be a really easy one. We're just going to have it on click as a window.print. And let's make sure we get the right icon. From Font Awesome 5.2 is the one we've been using. And here's our printing up there. We'll print, and as you can see, it works. It is printing. And it doesn't have the nav bar in there because our nav bar has the, we don't want the nav bar to print. So let's try this page. And as you can see here, it has those buttons. It says add, edit, or delete. So I'm in the spirit of our new CSS that I showed you, I'm going to add the noPrint class to that group of buttons, the add, edit, and delete, because we don't want to print those. So I'm just going to add the noPrint to those buttons. We're here on our CMS port. There we go. Let's do a print. And as you can see, the data shows up, but no random buttons that don't count. All right, so I noticed that the timeline was not in order. And we spoke about this earlier, how we needed to share months with the purchases and the orders. And so as you can see, like 10, the October date is like dead center in the middle. So watch this. What I do is I do a for loop that when I get this, how many, and I import all the months of the year that we have recorded. And then basically I have to make a placeholder to apply that month for that month. And then we need to sort the months. So let's read this. Build a month list and sort it first and apply the values to the index after the dates are in order. So yes, you want to get the months that we have first, and then we want to lay them all out and put them in order. And then once they're in order, then we want to go through them again and apply all of our orders and our purchases to them in according to the correct month. So that way we're all on the same page. And here is my solution. I have it go through all of it, and we look for the months, and if it's not already in the list of temp months, then I'm going to go ahead and push it in there to add the new month. I'm going to get rid of some of those bad ideas here, and basically what's going to occur is I will be putting a new array up that will push the months. Every time I see a month, I need to push a 0 to an array. Because when we start adding up all the sums, they have to start somewhere. Otherwise, it'll be not a number. So every month we want to go ahead and apply, I need to add a 0 to an array where we start adding up all of our purchases and where we start adding up all of our orders respectively. So there's about 5 minutes left in this video. So you'll see how it's not a number up there. And I'm about to show you what's going on. As you can see, it is not in order. The 7, the 10, the 8, and the 9 is not correct. So I'm not really happy with my sort function here. And I'm going to show you a JavaScript trick that I've been using for a very long time. It's when I do a reverse, and then I do a sort. That is a trick that I've learned that does work. So it will be in order now. If we go down to our months, see 7, 8, 9, and 10. So those months are all in order now. Now we need to apply money. So it says not a number, and the reason being is we're not adding to any money. We initially have to start out with 0. So we're going to push the 0 to temp sold quantities as a placeholder. That way when we start going through these sold quantities, we can add it starting at 0. Otherwise, it wouldn't add anything. And here you go. So we had to start at 0. Okay, so let's walk through. It's our shopping. And we're familiar with the way this is all laid out. So let's do the confirmation. Let's do an order. We can do OK. Let's look for that transaction. There it is. There's a transaction, 304, yeah. Okay. As we can see, the transaction and all its orders are here. We can find an item that we need more items to order. So this one's kind of low in stock at 4. So let's order some more. And then we see that down here, we ordered 6, and it's going to say that they're on their way. And order received is an option. I'm going to order receive this. And then you can see the 10 is here. And then we received it, and it took 0 days to show. And here we can see the sale of items, and very specific items, at what hour they were sold, down to the day, or we can go out as broad as the year. And here's our review and purchases. And let's try it with this in mobile. And they say that most traffic, like 65-70% of traffic, is going to be in mobile. So it's the same. Luckily, it's all the same. It's the same, responsive and mobile ready. They say Bootstrap's like kind of considered mobile first, and I can believe that. So let's go ahead and also say within the footer, I want to have a fixed footer so that it doesn't have a lot of trouble seeing what's at the bottom. Or I'm sorry, I want to have it inherited. So as you can see here, there's no ambiguity with that footer anymore. What page you go to, the footer is stable. It's not covering up any of the body. So I did that at the very end here. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial. I'd love to hear your feedback on what you'd like to see next. We've come quite a way with this. Eventually it was a cart, and now it is quite a big application. The only thing we're really missing is the actual merchant account to plug this into. And granted, since it's not a real application, you'd have to, make that API with PayPal or your bank or whoever it may be, and you would ultimately just do the transaction with the total and then from there you have all this stuff already documented. So this will work with any business. I hope to see that some people enjoy it. Maybe they use it for their business, or they use it for school. They teach some people in their college, or this is how you eventually get a job, is kind of learning from this experience. Like I said, I've been unemployed for a while, so this is kind of how I stay busy. And I'd rather teach this stuff, because it's come to find out that I feel like it's kind of a waste of time for me to go through all that school and not ever do anything with it.